right, welcome everyone to the Flux Dev Meeting. Today is Wednesday, the 24th of November. I'll have a brief look to see if there's action items from last time. There was one PR. Yes, one PR that Hida was supposed to look at that has happened. Cool. Yeah, so what I'm going to take an action to fix the meeting time. It looks during the DST change, we sort of lost track of what UTC is. So I'll look into that later on. Time. Cool. Hello, Sunny. Okay.
Hi.
I'm wondering, Stefan said he was going to come, and I could imagine that he maybe has an update regarding GA. So I wonder if, Kingdom, do you maybe want to go first with your update on V1 maybe?
Sure. There will be a Flux V1 release today. There's nothing really important or noteworthy about this release. It's a maintenance release. There's a GitHub host key update in the image, but we haven't really seen any issues where it was necessary to have this key. It's just a requirement of CI. So we waited to see if there were any reports from Flux V1 users that they were having issues with the new GitHub host keys, and we didn't see that problem. So in any case, we're going to publish the release, and it does have the new host key baked in. We believe that Git itself is probably smart enough to perform the upgrade. I read in the blog post, which I'll attach, about the host key upgrade, that there is a keyword, slips my mind what it is right now, update host keys maybe, protocol that they use to advertise the host keys in advance, and Git itself is probably smart enough to observe that protocol. That's what our working theory is. So.
Super. Any questions for Kingdom? Thanks a lot in any case for handling a lot of the V1 story. I have a quick agenda item. I'm writing the monthly update. I want to get it out on Monday. So if you could if you have anything you would like to add, any contributions you would like to highlight, a new contributor or a blog post or video, or really anything else. I'm doing this really just on a best effort basis, but I don't want to represent the Flux project just on my own. So if you have anything to add, please do. Cool. Yeah, the next item is GA. Does anyone have any updates regarding the GA story? That's a bit surprising. I thought with so many commits going into the RFCs lately, it would be a bit of update. Or any questions about that part of the process? I was actually quite happy to see a lot of feedback from many folks of you and also other community members. Okay.
Yeah, I've been starting to get through those documents. I've been sick for a week now, so I'm trying to catch up with all the great work that's being done. So hopefully I can add some comments this week.
Super. Yeah, I think it's in general also a sign of more maturity in the project that we have an RRC process like this. I think it's a really great development. Okay, the next bit is the audit follow-up. I'm sure you've all seen the project board. I'm very happy that we managed to have, like, I think it's now more than half of the items done. There's still a couple of documentation pieces, you know, some standardization that could happen, and of course the fuzzing. I had a brief chat with Hide about the integrating the fuzzing. I can't remember what the conclusion was. I seem to remember, like, we want to do some other work first before we do a big push together. Is that right?
The PRs that are open while adding fuzzer test should be brought into a shape where they are maintainable for long term. And after having looked at least 2 of the PRs, there seems to be a lot of duplication that can be factored out into, I don't know, the Flux CD package repository or something. It just requires time from someone to look into it in detail.
Yeah, thanks for the update. Are there any other questions regarding this, or any other agenda items? Anything you were hoping to discuss, or where you need some help?
Do these RFCs need to land before Flux can go GA?
For what?
For the GA work, like, do these need to land before
Oh yeah, for sure.
that? Okay, right, got it.
And these don't cover all the things that we had in that pull request that's currently mentioned on the roadmap. So we have to update the roadmap, add these RFCs, and create a dozen more RFCs for all the things that are mentioned there. Then we have to decide which ones are required for GA and which ones aren't. But in my mind, at least the ones that are there, especially RFC number 3, which depends on all the others, that describes how we can implement a security profile for Flux where the cluster admin can bootstrap Flux and lock it down for multi-tenancy. I think that should definitely come before GA, because there is also this debate. For example, Michael mentioned this many times, that Bootstrap should not allow people to install Flux without being aware of what they are doing. This means introduce a breaking change in Flux Bootstrap command, and if the security profile is not specified, exit the process, exit one, and tell people, hey, you have to choose a profile. We are not going to install Flux unless you explicitly say how you want to install it. For single tenant, in single tenant mode or multi-tenant mode.
Does that answer your question, Max? Does anyone else have questions or?
Sure.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, sorry, I was busy trying to take notes.
So I plan to create pull requests that implement the multi-tenancy enforcements in customized control as a proof of concept. Maybe that will make it easy for maintainers to review the current RFC. The implementation is quite trivial, but we have to agree that that's what we want to do.
Excellent. And do you need any help with this, or with or any of the RFCs where you feel like these need you know, more eyes to review them, or all of them?
I requested a review from all current maintainers, but everyone else is more than welcome to comment, approve, add their feedback to the RFC, right? So,
Do you want me to call this out in the monthly blog post as well?
oh yes, for sure.
Super, I'll do that.
I gave you the list with what each RFC does. So we could just put that list in there with links for to each pull request and invite people to comment on them.
Super, yeah. Excellent. Anything else, or do you want us to wrap up? Also wrap up early.
Yeah, we did a new release today, Flux 0.24. We've added some flags that introduce a breaking change to Helm users. We've introduced file size limits when to all Helm things. For example, if you have a Helm repository and your index YAML is greater than 15 megabytes, then a source controller will not download it, and it will fail. If you have a Helm chart package, then that tar is larger than 10 megabyte, same thing will happen. And we also added a limit for files inside the Helm chart that matches the etcd limit, which is 5 megabytes. So I don't expect the 5 megabytes to be an issue for anyone, because even if you have larger files in there, they'll never get applied on the cluster because etcd will reject it. But the index one and the chart one, we had to add some limits due to how Helm works. Helm loads the whole index YAML into memory when you need to do operations with it. And the security audit had a mention on this and said, okay, we cannot control the Helm repositories, it's up to the users to add them. But that means, let's say a tenant could add a Helm repository that has, I don't know, 1 gigabyte of YAML as an index, and it will crash source controller for everyone. And we can't allow that. So now it's in the cluster admin responsibility to increase the limits if their Helm repositories have larger index files than this. And yeah, that should be like a thing that you approve, that you are aware of, and so on. Also, increasing the index file size should be accompanied by increasing the memory limits as well for the controller. We have set 1 gigabyte memory limit for all Flux controllers, but that doesn't mean source controller not crash with out of memory, right? If you use this, have these huge indexes, they will definitely go over that limit. So you have to figure out which limits are best for you. We have settled on limits that we think are acceptable for most users, but definitely not for all. I've heard about Flux users who have like huge index files, 100 megabytes, even more. So you either clean your index file. I'm guessing people, I don't know, publish Helm charts for every I don't know, commit they do. So you either yeah, have some kind of job that deletes very old charts from there, or you increase the limits and the memory limits, and that's the way you could do it.
Max, you had a question?
Yeah, 2 quick questions on that. It's a great improvement, by the way. What happens when I already, like, I'm running an older version of Flux? I have a huge index YAML file that's indexed by the source controller, and then I upgrade Flux. Would it just stop working? Like,
Of course.
stop? Okay. And then what, like, what is the messaging around that? Does it emit a clear event that says like index file is too big or something like that?
Yes. And
cool. Awesome.
we issue an event, but we also set that error message on the ready status condition. So when you do Flux get all or Flux get sources Helm, you'll see there the error.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, of course, sending events, and you get that on Slack. So you don't have to use the command line. We should consider doing this for Git repos as well. Even if we never load the whole Git repository into memory, it's Git is more performance-wise is more deals differently with files than Helm. But the issue I'm seeing here in a multi-tenancy setup is that someone could add a huge Git repository to the cluster, and that will impact the network usage between source controller, customized controller, Helm controller, whoever uses that source. Because if you add I don't know, gigabytes of YAMLs, let's say you do that on purpose, right? I don't expect anyone to actually apply gigabytes of YAMLs on the cluster. I don't think etcd can take that. But anyway, let's say someone wants to crash your cluster. It can create like gigabytes of files, and then customized controller and Helm controller will have to download those sources from source controller. So that data will move through your CNI from one node to another, maybe if these controllers stay on different nodes. and Helm controller and customized controller have to untar the artifact, right? And this happens on a temp file system. Now, if the temp file system, with the temp file system, you have two choices. You can either set it like we do with the default, which uses the file system of a node, or you can set it to a memory disk. In both cases, you can create some problems, right? You can fill the disk of your node, or you can fill the memory of your node, and that will crash everything that's running on that node. So yeah, for this multi-tenancy effort, we should also take this into consideration, that maybe we should enforce some limits for the Git repos artifacts. We have this default exclusion list where, for example, if your repository contains binary files, huge files, I don't know, GIFs, JPEGs, other tar files, and so on, we exclude them by default. But if you create your own source, you can just drop all these exclusions, and you can still get to a huge artifact with all sorts of files that are not used by Flux in any way. They are just there in Git, and we have to package them. So yeah, maybe we can think of adding a limit to the Git and bucket repo as bucket source as well.
There is no way to know the size of a repository ahead of cloning it, right? So there's still a threat to source controller, I guess. Right?
Yeah, but at least it
doesn't propagate.
Doesn't propagate to all the others, right?
Right.
Now for the bucket, I think he then made some work around metadata, and I think we can query the bucket API and see the file sizes of all the files before we download them. So for the bucket use case, we can actually say we are not going to download this is over 15 megabytes or whatever the limit will be there.
For buckets, it doesn't matter because we never load files into memory.
No, it's not about memory. It's about what I've explained earlier. Is the fact that we fill the node disk, because if the bucket has 1 terabyte, we'll crash the node, and we'll also crash the CNI because we have to transfer that terabyte between source controller, customized controller, Helm controller. Also, these controllers have to untar the artifacts, so they will fill the disk of the nodes where they are deployed.
In that way, yeah. Question is where you set the limit. I mean, at some, yeah, well, the limit and people holding people in their hands.
No, I mean, we set a limit, let's say 100 megabytes for buckets and Git repositories. That's the default. Then the cluster admin, it's up to that team to control if they want to allow gigabytes of Git repos and buckets to fly around inside the cluster. But by default, we shouldn't allow a tenant to register its own Git repo and crash the whole nodes and everything, because we can.
Yeah, okay.
Right? You get it?
I mean, to be fair, you could also do the same, creating, I don't know, a deployment that fills the disk, right?
Yep. But a deployment is not
crash.
A Flux concern.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just thinking how much Flux itself should mitigate this problem, because like,
what I fear is that we end up with an endless list of controller arguments for every file type and situation they are placed in. The same as that for Helm charts, for example, you need a file limit for the chart itself, but then also for a file within a chart, because depending on the context you're working with the package, the size of one of the things that is in the chart, or most of the time more the directory you're working with that is going to end up as a chart, has different limits than, yeah. And what you then end up with is like, okay, what is the total size of all bucket item together? What is the maximum size single file from a bucket may be? May a directory not contain more than, I don't know, I'm just making up things now, but I fear that you in the end up with a list of like 20 or 30 arguments for operators to tweak according to their security wishes, which I think is fine. But if we end up going into such a route, we may want to think about making it configurable through a config map, so that we lean more towards nice declarative configuration, because controller arguments are pretty well, especially in combination with how you need to customize basically Flux deployments. It adds a lot. It's a lot of complexity to the user doing the Flux deployment, which may be made easier if we can just say like, well, we look at this config map for certain key value pairs, and if you put them into that config map and it exists, then we take them into account, which would provide a better alternative to having to modify the deployments with an overlay. But yeah, another thing I would then wonder is if at the moment for some Git implementations, we do things in memory, but for libgit2, for example, the Git directory always is on disk. If it wouldn't be better to, for GoGit, also just start working with the file system to prevent loading things into memory, because that would already be another improvement. And we now are in a situation where we can handle the garbage collection and other things that we didn't know how to precisely deal with when we initially wrote the memory implementation, to properly clean things up, which would already be an improvement, I think, on the research uses for the Git side.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, nevertheless, I think adding the artifact as a limit, the same way we did today for Helm index and Helm chart, adding it some limit to the artifact that's produced from a bucket or Git repository would be beneficial. I agree that the more flags we add, the more things people have to patch in their Bootstrap repo. But yeah, I don't see a config map being better than a customized patch, which is just a YAML with the same things inside. But we can discuss it another time.
And Outdoor 24, just to get back to, I think earlier you were listing the new features of the new release, and it also has Bitbucket server support, right?
Yes, thanks to Sule. Are you here? Jeez. Yes, so Sule has been working on Bitbucket support for a long time now. He added it to the Go Git providers, which is an internal library that we use in Flux to deal with Git SAS APIs. And he added support to that, and he also made Flux Bootstrap for Bitbucket server and data center. Next step will be to add support for Bitbucket Cloud to finally cover all the Bitbucket products. Yeah, I think we should create an issue, and maybe people will be interested in doing that. But yeah, thank you very much, Sule, for getting that done. I know it took a long time.
Yeah, was fun. I think for the Bitbucket Cloud, it might be easier because we have already a client that's open source.
Sule, is this also something I should mention in the monthly update? I'm just briefly referring to the ODA 24 release notes. But if you want, we could, I don't know, link to the documentation we have, and I don't know if you want any feedback or need any help with anything that needs implementing now. Should I add a section?
There's a feature parity with the other providers, and this is something that has been requested by some of Beaver's clients on the C side as well. So it might be good to enhance it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think in the blog post we should, of course, announce Bitbucket server and data centers for link to the docs. So Sule has also added the install docs to the Flux website, and there in the blog post ask for, we would like some help getting full Bitbucket support, including the cloud version, and ask for anyone that's up to that, and it's using Bitbucket Cloud, so she can also test everything in there. That would be nice.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm noting this down. Super. Anything else? Everyone happy?
Just a quick question for you, Daniel. I don't know if we've seen it. Outil was asking a question about Flux V1 images on Docker Hub that have been rate limited. Do you know what we can do about that? Because, or maybe this is something now, but on the Web Cloud part, we have some issues regarding that.
Yes, so I reached out to CNCF a while ago, and I just pinged them again. So basically what we would need is to be added, for Flux to be added to Docker's open source special program, so we don't get rate limited anymore. And I haven't heard back. So on the email is Ihor. I'll ping him on Slack after this call. Let me make a note. Daniel, and the person at Docker who was supposed to implement this, or basically said like, you're all set, their email is bouncing, so they have moved on. So we might need to find a new contact at Docker. But I guess we can also ping Justin, like we're friends with Justin as well. So I'll keep you posted on this one.
Good, thanks.
Hey Max, what are you doing in your product? Do you mirror the Flux images? You use GitHub Container Registry, Docker Hub? How are you guys doing it?
For the Flux images?
Yeah.
We use those that Flux install refers. So it's the GitHub ones, right?
Yeah. So we switched from Docker to GitHub long time ago, before when Docker announced the rate limits, and we use Docker as a mirror or as a backup in case in case GitHub goes down. But I'm wondering if, I don't know, for those that are bundling Flux into an enterprise product, if you have your own registry, but I'm guessing not. You use the public.
Well, to be fair, we have many customers that run in air-gapped environments, so they will not be affected by any of this, right? Because we provide them with a whole bundle of the images, and then they just put them onto their registry. But yeah, otherwise we refer to the GHCR.
Yeah, there was a concern with that because we switched long time ago when GitHub registry was alpha. But Right now it's production ready. From what I've heard, I haven't seen any problems with downtime around it. If GitHub goes down, everything goes down. So
Right. And it's much better. Like in our experience, it's much better than Kai or Docker Hub. So
oh yeah.
best choice.
We've been on the Quay registry and we got kicked out from
That's
there.
pretty bad.
Yeah, Flux was doing too many requests to the registry, it brought down the whole thing, so they kick us out. So yeah.
Super. All right, any last words?
No, I'm looking forward to the weekend.
Yeah, me too.
Far
me
away.
too. Yeah, okay, I'll get to my 4 or 5 new action items now. See you around, everyone. It's good to see you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay.